Hi everyone, this is Andy Romero Birkbeck from We Are Wellbeing. Welcome to episode 3 of the Wellbeing Insight series. If you want to follow any of the content from the We Are Wellbeing Insight series, you can follow the hashtag WAW Insights. That'll be appearing on Twitter, on Instagram and on Facebook. Today I'm joined by my colleague Phil Marsland, who's a leadership, culture and HR expert. Morning Phil.
Good morning, Andy.
You well?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Phil's going to be taking us through episode 3 today, which is all about leading well-being. Phil, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here with Andy, supporting We Are Wellbeing and taking part in this innovative series of seminars and to be delivering the crucial subject of leading well-being.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with a bit of an introduction of what's going to be covered by the session. Phil, do you want to give us a bit of a run through?
Yeah, so you can see the bullet points on the screen there, and I think there's several things on there that are not necessarily to the forefront of people's minds when we start talking about well-being. So it's important to understand why you need to lead well-being in terms of the benefits, and for me to be really clear about the audience that is going to get the most benefit out of these sessions. And also moving that further forward into ownership. Who owns well-being in your organisation? A brief session looking at you and your mindset and your own well-being and your whole approach to leadership within your organisation. And I think it's very important to think about what the landscape looked like before COVID-19, what it looks like now, and perhaps think forward about what it may look like when we come out of this period of time. Clearly, to lead wellbeing, you need a strategy and a tactical plan, so we'll touch on that. And we'll perhaps make some suggestions about potential mistakes post-COVID-19 in terms of leading wellbeing and what opportunities there are to build on the lessons that we've learned during this period of time and to make work a place where people thrive and are well, and perhaps suggest what next steps you can take as well.
Fantastic.
So, first part of this then, the benefits. Wellbeing is a nice thing to do, isn't it? But there are some hard business benefits as well. If you have a good approach to wellbeing and good organisational health in terms of your people, you will get improved staff retention, you will get better productivity, and your employer reputation will be enhanced. People will talk about your place of work as being a good place to be. They will be your advocates. So there are some real hard business benefits here. In terms of the audience, this is aimed at business leaders and senior management and HR leaders. It's important that there's that inclusive audience and that this isn't just because it's a nice thing to do in some people's minds, isn't just an HR project.
Phil, do you think sometimes well-being gets bought into for the wrong reason?
Yeah, it can do. It can be seen to be good in corporate annual statements, annual reviews. Sometimes people haven't thought about it all the way through, Andy, in terms of what it means and the different impacts on people's well-being within an organisation and how actions can have impacts from a leadership and management point of view. So it maybe gets pigeonholed too much rather than being thought of as being an inclusive and holistic part of how you run businesses.
Definitely. I think one of the things that I've definitely seen within our approach to implementing a wellbeing program is quite often, and definitely 5 or 6 years ago, wellbeing was just getting dropped on HR as one of their additional subjects that they needed to take responsibility for, and it never really went above HR. It just sort of stayed with them as soon as some sort of budget was set. Do you think it's sort of fair to say that needs to change?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's no two organisations that are the same. So there are some fantastic examples out there where there's clear understanding and universal buy-in, and the business is reaping the benefits of that. But there's a lot of people who are stuck or too busy or haven't quite given it the thought that it deserves. And maybe when I've touched on coming to opportunities later on, maybe this period of time has given people a different insights, different perspective about what's really important, and maybe those can be built into the world of work as we move forward out through the other side of this crisis.
Absolutely. So let's move forward then onto ownership.
Yeah. So I mean, this is really what we've just been talking about, Andy. That sometimes you can get well-being being somebody's personal passion project. They're really passionate about it. They really care about it. They're going to take ownership, and they become the person who takes care of well-being in the organisation. Or sometimes you get people saying phrases, well, it's about people, just pitch it to HR. HR can look after this. But I would make the following challenging statement: your business will be sick if you don't lead well-being.
Powerful sentiment.
Yeah. So we move on to the next slide then. So this links with yourself really as a leader of the business, whether you're in HR, whether you're in the C-suite or senior leadership positions. How you use your time and what is your sense of purpose, your sense of your own role, will dictate your attitude to well-being. If you see it as being an add-on that you haven't got time for, I would suggest you're thinking about your role wrong, and you're missing an opportunity to have a more holistic approach to leading your organisation and leading your people by building a mindset of leading well-being into your sense of purpose. So this is something that's perhaps not thought about too much. How you actually lead, manage, communicate with your people has an impact on well-being. It's absolutely fundamental to relationships, to how people feel in work, to whether they feel trusted and empowered, to whether they're actually thriving and growing in their roles, or whether they're managed and controlled, and with all those detrimental impacts on their own personal well-being. So how you lead and manage is crucial to the well-being within your organisation. And these are areas that you might want to think about as well. So your reputation, how much people believe you and how authentic you are, will have an impact. So if you're signing off on a well-being policy, but people have perhaps a negative view of you, they've had bad experiences of you, they're not necessarily going to believe what you've written on a policy document or what you've signed off on posters around your organisation. So your actions every day need to be in line with your organisational approach to well-being. So this touches on the next area of how self-aware are you? Who's holding up the mirror to you in terms of the impact that you're having, positive and maybe not quite so much, on your organisation and people in it? And again, going down the line of challenging questions, if somebody is holding up the mirror to you, do you actually want to look? So some of these are quite hard subjects. And just flipping the coin there, who's actually taking care of you? How is your own well-being? How is your own vulnerability? Are you comfortable with sharing stories about yourself, about almost giving people permission to do the same in terms of their physical and mental well-being? You know, there's a great opportunity there for you to take the lead and to share and to be a role model for others in your organisation. And finally, who's actually helping you? Where are your sources of support inside the organisation, maybe externally through leadership and coaching support, and obviously in the specialist area of wellbeing as well. So there's quite a lot to think about as a leader of an organisation in terms of how you're whole approach, your mindset and behaviours impact on organisational well-being.
Just to add in, Phil, as a little bit of sort of feedback, is that from as an organisation, I mean, I've personally been delivering workplace wellbeing for the past 15, 16 years now, and one of the things that without a doubt stands out from organisation to organisation, you mentioned earlier about, you know, not all organisations' approaches are the same, and one thing that does stand out to me, beyond anything else, the defining point between a successful wellbeing strategy and one that isn't, is that buy-in from the senior leaders. One particular organisation, without naming the organisation, they brought us in to deliver a wellbeing program for the team, and the first thing that the CEO of the business did was stood up in front of everybody and shared his story. So all the you know, whenever you deliver a wellbeing program, you know, half the staff might be actively engaged straight away, and the other half might need a bit of encouragement, a little bit of buy-in. But as soon as that senior leader stood up and told them why the organisation was investing in wellbeing and shared their personal story, the whole room, the dynamics changed completely. Do you think there's something in that?
I can. Sorry to jump in there. I can imagine you painting like a powerful picture there. I bet it was an incredible moment. I can almost see people sitting up and paying attention and saying, "Wow, we better take this seriously." It's powerful stuff, and for somebody at the top of an organisation to share and to make themselves vulnerable in that way, it is massively to their credit. But it does set the scene. It does give people permission.
It sort of gives it that authenticity.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. That rather than your point a little earlier, where you were saying organisations perhaps doing well-being because they think they should, rather than actually really understanding it and understanding what that means in terms of actions and support. That authenticity is crucial, and people will see where people are not being authentic. No, you know.
That whole thing, I remember writing a blog about it years ago, and one of the kind of the quotes I remember from writing it was that employees can see a tick box exercise a mile off.
That's a great quote.
you can quote me on it.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah.
When it's been bought in for the right reasons, it comes from the top and it's genuine. It has, you know, and the amazing thing about that is it's so powerful and it doesn't cost a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, really good point.
And I think that one of the things that Sue and I talked about on episode 1 was the fact that, you know, a lot of organisations have this misconcept that wellbeing programs and strategies need to cost the earth, and they really don't. They just need a lot of good intention.
Yeah, I've used the phrase for a number of years, both when I was a senior HR practitioner in-house and now with my own leadership HR consultancy, that a lot of what happens in organisations is about relationships and communication.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost very much at all. It really doesn't. But it needs an intentionality to manage those things and to make sure that people are understood and appreciated, and that difference is appreciated as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so next slide, we wanted to take a look at COVID, or what is wellbeing before COVID and what it is now. So to give you a bit of a run through, what we've done is taken some of the CIPD Health and Wellbeing at Work survey statistics. So we see that the most common causes of long-term absence are around mental ill health, musculoskeletal issues, stress, acute medical conditions and minor illnesses. What was interesting in the last sort of year or so is that we started to see absenteeism fall. Now, a lot of the rationale behind organisations investing in wellbeing was to reduce absenteeism, is to keep people in work and to lower sickness rates. And this actually happened, according to the 2020 survey. But alongside absenteeism actually reducing, we then saw an increase in presenteeism. So presenteeism is people coming to work ill. And then we also saw an increase in leavism, so people using their annual leave to recover. So then one of the things that we've got to question is, why is this happening and what does it mean? What does it mean about the culture within the organisation? Does it mean that employees are scared, are fearful of taking time off and genuinely, when they genuinely are ill? And that's quite a worrying place to be. So even though from a mental health stance, we've come a long way, we're still way off where we need to be. So there are some encouraging things happening, but we're way from where we need to be. So one of the things that we've got to do from an organisational point of view is really look at these statistics and understand where do we fall within them. So Phil, do you want to?
I will. Yeah, it's really powerful stuff, and statistics are important, and it's great that we've got that captured at that particular moment in time. Who on earth knows what those numbers look like now? But one thing I can guarantee to the listeners here is there are other factors at play now. People will either have been a call worker and be in work. They'll have either been furloughed, they could have been made redundant. They may be attempting to work from home with kids running around, maybe with inadequate facilities, and all of this, to say nothing of the real threat to health and life and community, will have had an impact, as well as all of those factors that we're talking about there. So the first bullet point there is people will be watching. People will have a view of you as a leader of the organisation. How have you behaved through this crisis, and what impact has that had on them and their nearest colleagues? There's also all those factors about fear, impact on mental health, bit of cabin fever, real financial impacts on people. These are real and significant things. And all of this time, if people are not in work or are locked down, provides time for reflection. Maybe people thinking about their priorities, their family ties, how they want to live their lives. What is their sense of purpose? You know, people. This to me, Andy, is almost like Christmas or a long holiday multiplied by a factor of numerous times, where people will be thinking, what am I doing with my life? And they will have been exposed to different things. You know, this whole thing about where the communities have come together and shared and clapped for the NHS and social distancing, standing behind their lines in the supermarket. This changes people's perception. Even when you go for your walk in the morning or whenever you go for it, saying hi to strangers, I've noticed that happens a lot more. This is going to change the sense of where people are at, their sense of purpose, and eventually when they re-engage with whatever the new normal is, this will all have an effect. These bullet points are not in a particular order. So one of the positive things is people have needed to find creative solutions to problems. Tapping into new technologies is one. How you organise yourself and your loved ones and your family. How you take care of your own health, exercise. There's all manner of creative solutions, all the way up to things like Formula One team McLaren being instrumental in the manufacture of ventilators. All of this creativity has been unleashed, and there's real opportunities there. And then there will be, sadly, people who have lost loved ones, work colleagues as well. And this will have an impact on when work restarts in the new normal. And if you're not working, if people are not working, there will be not just the physical, but the mental disengagement from work. This is unprecedented, and it will take quite something for people to get back up to work. Using my analogy earlier, just imagine that first day back at work after Christmas is probably really tough. You've probably forgotten how to sign your name. Definitely forgotten what your password is. you'd be absolutely worn out by lunchtime. Imagine that multiple fold over. All of these are real things, but they also provide opportunities as well. So we want to move on, Andy, to the next slide. Clearly, you need a wellbeing strategy. You need to have very clear ownership. Who is responsible for wellbeing? And I would suggest that it needs to be led from the top, not just the HR department.
Sue and I touched on this in episode 1, and what we really covered there was these. Just as a bit of a reminder, is that it has to start from the top. It's got to be a top-down approach, but it's then identifying, what is the responsibility of the business, what is the responsibility of managers, what is the responsibility of individual employees taking that level of ownership. So there's ownership up and down throughout the whole organisation, isn't there?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, everybody has a part to play.
I think an interesting one that we've looked at within that as well is this idea about being what we call being a compassionate colleague. And I did some work recently with one of the national charities, and that was fundamental to their wellbeing strategy, because in an organisation where managers are working full throttle anyway, looking after the well-being of their vast teams that were dotted around the whole country, it would have been a job in itself, and it is without a doubt something that managers should be doing. But there is that component there of actually, do I look out for my colleague? Is it my responsibility to look after the person that's sat next to me, and vice versa? And I think when organisations do that well, it really does resonate.
No, I like that. I like that inclusivity as well. Just briefly on that point. I wrote a blog before Christmas. It was published in the Yorkshire Times, and it was titled "How Are You Today?" And it's a really powerful question that anybody can use, and it gives permission to people to open up and speak. But it also shows that you care and that you're compassionate as well. So. There's lots that can be done all throughout the organisation, and you need support as well. In this series, We Are Wellbeing are showcasing their services, and I'll let you tap into the other webinars there. But you do need expertise on this, rather than somebody in some department just being given it and having to do some quick research and write some policy and do some initiatives which can often end up as fruits in the canteen and those types of well-meaning but not joined up actions and absence of strategy.
I think one of the things that we've got to mention at this point is one thing that I was having a conversation with another wellbeing provider earlier this week, and we're talking about the amount of organisations that have popped up out of nowhere that are suddenly delivering wellbeing services as a result of this wellbeing, this coronavirus situation that's occurred, and the amount of sort of mental ill health that's going to occur because of it. And there are a lot of wellbeing opportunities out there, and there's so many new, brand new wellbeing businesses that have popped up. So one thing that I would say is that what organisations have really got to do is background check. Who are you putting in front of your most valuable asset, your people, your most valuable asset, and you need to be careful about who you're putting in front of them.
A phrase that just sprung to mind: be wary of the overnight expert.
Yeah, that's a great one, Phil. In fact, we might have to use that as the tagline for this for this series.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously we've got We Are Wellbeing Services, and you know where to go to find out more about that. Phil, on to performance.
This perhaps isn't considered enough when we're talking about wellbeing, but and I touched on it a little earlier. But your whole approach to performance management, how you manage the performance and productivity of your people, is a key part of your wellbeing strategy. Is what you're doing, what's written down, what's in your policies and procedures for managing performance, is it aligned with your wellbeing strategy? Or is it something that's a lot more brutal, a lot more unforgiving, and a lot more one size fits all? That's a really important question. And then linked to the whole of your HR policies and practices, do they all align with your wellbeing strategy? What does your dependent care leave approach policy look like? What's your flexible working policy look like? What's your bereavement policy look like? What's working from home look like? All really, really pertinent questions, particularly through this challenging period that we're all living through.
Do you think a lot of that? Do you think a lot? I want to say, do you think a lot of that will need to be rewritten and edited when organisations return?
Absolutely, and I think it's going to be challenging because this period of time, as I was saying earlier, where people have been at home, they will be thinking about, well, actually, do I want to be doing that commute every day, an hour each way, and sitting in that office in front of that screen, 9 to 5 or longer? Or is there a different way that could be more effective, that gives me just as much satisfaction from work, where I can be just as much just as productive and have a better life, improve my well-being? Maybe that also environmental benefits to that as well. I think there's going to be all sorts of challenges, because I know, having worked in a senior position in HR functions, that if your organisation is minded to refuse flexible working requests, then you pretty much can. Because you can say, well, that wouldn't work because of this or that, or we need you here, sense the team. But a lot of people have been working in different ways through this period of time. So there's going to be all sorts of challenges that are going to be, if you've got the mindset where you're still trying to refute those requests, I think you're going to present yourself with difficulties, and that's going to impact on employee engagement, productivity, your employer reputation, staff retention. I think this would be a huge challenge to organisations that have had a less sophisticated approach to this whole aspect of how you engage and manage and treat your employees.
Oh, well, I mean, I'd say that has had an impact on us as a business. I mean, on a personal level, there's no 9 to 5 happening in our house. It's, what I've started to do is work when I'm most productive, which is from first thing in the morning. So I'm what you would call the classic morning lark, where I wake up, 5:30, I'm switched on, I can go downstairs, I can fire up the laptop, and I can work really productively. But come, say, 2:30 in the afternoon, I'm dead. And but actually, I'm getting more done. I'm way more productive than I ever have been in a 9 to 5 situation. So then, do organisations then start to look at, well, actually, based on your personal sleep-wake cycles, based on when you can maximise your energy levels the absolute best, when you're most switched on and you're most productive, is that when we want you to do the level of work? And if it's not crucial to be delivered between the hours of 9 to 5, then is there some area of flexibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd echo that. I'm a sort of 6 o'clock, 6:30 sort of guy. But come the middle of the afternoon, then I'm sort of finished. You get that post-lunch lag. But if you think of it and tot up the hours, well, I've done a day's work anyway. So, so what's the challenge there? And having that more attuned to people's, I don't know if it's biorhythms or preferences or metabolism, perhaps. That could get really interesting from an employee relations point of view going forward.
Well, we've got in some of the later episodes, we're talking to Dominic Haig, who is a nutrition and sleep expert. So Dom will be able to take us through a little bit more insight into some of those areas, which will be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, as I said at the start of this piece, imagined or projected forward to post-COVID-19, and that might seem a long way away, but there will come a time when we're through this and we're into the new normal. And I'm imagining the types of mistakes from organisations that I've worked in and worked with that might happen. You might get people saying, well, everything's back to normal now. There might not be a genuine acknowledgement of what people have lived through. And as we were talking a moment ago, flexible working requests might be judged the same, whereas people might have proven that there is a different way, a different approach to work, of maybe not needing everybody in one place. I think because just jumping slightly ahead there, Andy, because we've not lived through this before, we might need to look at all these policies. Like, is the bereavement policy appropriate? Are you going to stick to that? Are you really going to say, yeah, it's 3 days, that's what the policy says? Are you really going to push everybody towards occupational health with mental health issues? Or do you need to have a more inclusive approach? And what about this sort of idea of fail fast and an agile approach and methodology? People have been doing that. People have been learning fast. New ideas have been tried and launched. Is there an opportunity there when you're back to work to have that sort of mindset and that sort of approach to how you do work? So there's great opportunities here to genuinely and authentically communicate as a business leader. So a little like Andy was saying about leading wellbeing and a CEO standing up and sharing their story. A CEO or C-suite people or business leaders sharing genuinely their experiences through this period, their fears, their hopes, their challenges, can just be a really great way to say to their people, I understand what you've gone through. I've gone through something similar too. So the second point there would be, there is an opportunity here for a fresh approach to wellbeing and working practices, as we've been talking through. And the third point, and maybe a fresh approach to the traditional sense of work and place and time. You know, does it have to be 9 to 5? Where did that come from anyway? And this whole idea of being empathetic to what people have lived through and are still living through. Maybe you need to be more flexible in terms of your thinking about what they're capable of, productivity-wise, attendance-wise. And we've seen some fantastic stuff. I honestly think there's been more positive news stories all the way through Captain Tom Moore to Platt for the NHS to people running 26.2 miles in the gardens. There's been some great ideas and sense of community and collaboration and creativity. And there's great opportunities to not just switch all that off, but to almost give people permission when we're back in the workplace to have that type of approach to work again.
Situations like this, it seems that they bring out the best in people and they also bring out the worst in some people, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so. I've been thinking about that. I was thinking about writing in some ways, but I think that in times of crisis, you see who people really are.
Absolutely.
They might have been masked, good and bad. So in summary then, just to pull all these points together, there is an opportunity for a new normal. You can get some leadership support from myself, working through my own business via We Are Wellbeing, which is called Blue Tree Consulting. Wellbeing must be owned and it must be led from the top. And there is an opportunity to challenge old working mindsets and practices through this. And the key sources of support from We Are Wellbeing are absolutely vital, and I hope you'll tune into those through the rest of this seminar series. And my final point there, in summary, your people are waiting for you to lead wellbeing, and they will be watching.
Thank you for that, Phil.
Thank you.
So just to obviously give you some insight into the rest of the business, you can follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Most of those, not all of them, but most of them can be followed through WAW Wellbeing. The website is wearewellbeing.co.uk. You can contact us about absolutely anything on this series or any questions that you've got at hello@wearewellbeing.co.uk. And we've also got the hashtag WAW Insights as well. So that'll be featuring all the content from the previous seminars that we've done this week and the upcoming 9 that we've got remaining. So that's hashtag WAW Insights. And then just to kind of summarise and say thank you to Phil. So Phil is one of our associates, but also as a partnering company from Blue Tree. Phil, do you want to just give a bit of an intro to why you set up Blue Tree?
Yeah, I worked in-house for a great number of years, rising to senior HR positions, and I just wanted to take my experiences and my insights and my approach to a range of different companies and make a difference to them through a more inclusive approach to leadership and HR and well-being. So business has been running almost 4 years with a whole range of different clients and individuals, from large manufacturing businesses to local authorities, schools, and the like. So it's been a fantastic journey, and I'm delighted to be working in collaboration and be part of We Are Wellbeing. So thank you for that opportunity, Andy.
Absolutely, Phil. It's good to have you on board. So thank you again, Phil, for today's insight. It was really, really valuable. And if anybody does have any questions, do feel to get in touch. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Andy.